Upon arriving in Port Pipopolis, the party was approached by a kind sailor looking to introduce them to the town. After stopping to register their ship, and some townsfolk, at the Port Authority, the party entered the city. After fumbling around the city, looking for places to go, the party eventually decided on the bar whose name it was the most fun to scream out loud. Taking a brief detour from their journey in order to get Brian laid again, the party found themselves stopping at a local whorehouse, wherein they conveniently hired a stripper, who revealed herself to be the daughter of the king. She was trying to make an escape from the town, which had been suffering from a plague. After being wooed by a string of masterfully crafted haikus, she decided to join Brian on quote-unquote his ship, the Devil's Beef, instead of trying to make it on her own. After reminding Brian who the real bosses were, the party aimlessly and drunkenly stumbled around Port Pipopolis. They violated gang leaders, they investigated meat factories, and they examined the hats of dead homeless people. With no clear direction in front of them, the party decided to visit the council building of Port Pipopolis to find out what they could do to help the town. In the chambers, they were introduced to Chancellor Valorum, in whom they had little confidence, but who was at least able to direct them to the bar that they had been initially going to when they got sidetracked. After finally arriving at the bar, the party split up to wait for a dwarf who would tell them about a nearby cave from which a great evil was being emitted and affecting the town. While they waited for the dwarf, the party bided their time in different ways. Mark and Wen did the usual, by which I mean each other. Brian got rejected by a roastie, and then got into a fight with some chads, and Akmanos disguised himself as Chancellor Valorum and stole Brian's french fries. The dwarf eventually did show up to tell the party about the cave to the southwest that supposedly contained a great evil power, possibly a lich. The party quickly realized that they were being called there by the hat of Wen's dead mentor, Shangles. Following the dwarf's directions, the party headed southwest and entered the cave. In the cave, the party's spirit was eroded as they were slowly split up and coerced into distrusting and fighting one another. In the end, Mark proved to be the most capable fighter, but he was no match for the cave, which swallowed him up just like the rest of his party. The party awoke from their torment to find themselves in the lair of a lich named Daryl. He explained that he had used Wen's mentor to get her kicked out of town, to convince her to go to the west, to enlist the help of the Chosen Free, and then he used the tainted meat to lure the party back east, where he could rendezvous with them to enlist their help in dealing with the shadow government. The party discovered that in order to get to the lands south of the Meat Kingdom, they would have to do something that involved the word Kumari. At first, sure, but soon after, decidedly unsure, the party hoped that if they continued clearing quests off their docket, they would eventually find the meaning of the word. The party was transported back to Port Pipopolis, whereupon they discovered that the castle was on fire. Using his ability to fly, Akmanos was able to save the son of the king, as well as violate and save the king himself. Realizing that this was their chance to seize power in the city, Akmanos silenced the king with some help from a crafty local named Gary, and then took Mark and the son to the Devil's Beef, where they planned to groom him to be the next king of Port Pipopolis. The party next went west, towards the eastern edge of the mountains, where they planned to infiltrate the Gigolo fortress of Bigelow. They succeeded, and were able to go straight to the office of the leader, who they nearly killed after falling victim to a Colorado counter-gambit. From there, Akmanos disguised himself as the leader of the Gigolo gang, and the party proceeded to make their way through the entire fortress, stealthily killing gang members as they went. With the Gigolo fortress of Bigelow cleared, the party left and headed west towards the end of the range, where they hoped to find more clues to the meaning of the mysterious word Kumari. They visited people on the street, they visited the embassies, and even the warden himself, but everyone was only able to repeat the same cryptic advice. Eventually, The party was directed to a bar where they met with an elf who supposedly had an idea of the word's origin. But he was like everyone else and had no real idea. However, he was able to take the party to his village where they would meet with his elder, who he assumed would have the answer to the question they were asking. In the elven village, Mark, under the protection of Wen and Gary, went to find a fair elven maiden to lay with, in order to appease Davy Two-Tone Jones. Meanwhile, Akmanos went to speak with the village elder, with Brian. As soon as the elder opened his mouth, Akmanos suddenly realized that Kumari was referring to the koala root. He instantly bolted out of the door and ran towards Mark in a desperate attempt to stop him from violating a local woman, as per the prediction of the village elder. Unfortunately, Mark finished too quickly for Akmanos to stop him. The party left the village and made their way on foot to Boneville, where they boarded the Devil's Beef, which had conveniently come to meet them there. From there, they sailed to the koala route, and all in record time. During their voyage, the party solidified their bond as they reflected on how they had grown so much more powerful together. They also, at long last, invited Brian to join the inner circle. Arriving at the port of Kumari, the party was greeted by some strange locals living on the island at the edge of a giant ocean vortex. After determining that it was a cannibal colony, the party quickly made haste off the island and back onto the safety of the ship. But, as they ran to the ship, the island began to crack and break apart. The party managed to get to the ship, but the 10 crew members that they had disembarked with were lost to the depths along with the island. As Akmanos steered the Devil's Beef towards the center of the vortex, a dragonborn flew out of it and onto the ship, introducing himself as the Gatekeeper. He challenged the party to combat. After a long and difficult combat, full of ripostes, level 4 spells, incorrectly added unarmed damage, and missed tuba blasts, the Gatekeeper was finally defeated. The party was sure of one thing, and it was that no matter what they needed to do, the means to their objective could only be found at the bottom of the vortex. So, as Wen, Mark, and Brian braced themselves, Akmanos valiantly steered the Devil's Beef right into the middle of the vortex. And as the blackness of the depth of the middle of the vortex surrounded them, a deep rumbling voice yelled, "You are not free!"